Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're reacting and having a discussion from a video from Mr Tatorhead. And, well, this guy, man, one of the best, players, I think, Survivor players in Dead by Daylight. And he offers, like, very, very good guides if you actually want to be able to learn how to play Survivor in the best way possible, which I figure is not many. I do think that a lot of the Survivor sort of community does like to stay within that casual space, but if you do want to raise up that level, raise up your potential, I do think that Mr. Tatorhead actually has it down pat, or down packed. I don't know the term for that, but anyway. So I actually was watching his videos back when I did play Survivor all that time ago. Just, I wouldn't say I was a Survivor main, but I just thought like maybe there would be a way to make it interesting by learning rotations and loops and things like that to try to make the experience a little bit more enjoyable for me. Obviously, that has not really stayed really true for me. I think I don't really play it much. I don't play it at all, actually. But I do recommend Mr. Tatorhead's channel for that reason, despite that, because when I was learning stuff, I was able to at least say I walked away with new information, and it wasn't really applicable when I was trying to use the information for me personally, only because I don't think I was, actually that doesn't really apply to this conversation, but anyway, the point is, okay, this is we're gonna talk about this video. After playing Killer with no perks for 5 years, I am spending these blood points. So he does have a couple of takes that he does go over in the video, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit of the video and talk about those takes as well. And let's get into it.
No perks and no add-ons on Killer. I think it's just about time to spend the blood points and start using perks and add-ons on Killer. A lot of people don't know this about me, but the whole time I've been using no perks, I've also been doing no perks on Killer as well, and I played a lot of Killer. I was making sure I got my Iridescent 1, Killer, and Survivor every single month for years. In all honesty, it was really just because I was trying to get my big funny blood point number bigger and funnier. Because if you get to Iridescent 1, you get 1 million blood points that does go above the cap. And while I was grinding just for the fun of getting as many blood points as I could, I was making sure I got my Iridescent 1, Killer, and Survivor, because I was 2 million points over the cap. And that was also before there was all these extra like login rewards, and blood point codes were very seldom, and we didn't even used to get these weekly rewards that most of the time were like 250,000 blood points. Now most of the time where I was playing this Killer on my way to Iridescent 1, I was playing Nemesis. I am definitely a Nemesis main. From basically just playing Nemesis to get to Iridescent 1, I accumulated a lot of Nemesis whip downs.
Which, before he mentions, if you look at it here, he's literally the number 4th? The number 4th Nemesis in the freaking world, dude. Like, the number 4th Nemesis. Like, that was a shock. I was so impressed, and I was like, damn, like, I want to see him play Nemesis. So, obviously, if you want to watch the rest of the original video and stuff like that, it'll be linked. But we're gonna quickly go over to the takes here, because he's a number 4th Nemesis, hasn't used perks in years, and he says he has a lot of opinions about it, about Killer, and I really want to talk about that.
And no perks Killer. And warning, I have a lot of hot takes on DBD. If you play with no perks for 5 years, you're probably going to have a lot of hot takes on DBD. But also, what's life without some hot takes in video games and sports? Neither of those matter, so might as well have some hot takes in them. But Survivor, I never feel at a disadvantage with no perks and no add-ons. It always feels like the only disadvantage is lack of communication. I cannot remember another time where I was playing a game in the past few years on Survivor where the big issue in the game wasn't, I needed this or that perk. It was more, dang, if we're in communications, we could have avoided this whole scenario. Because I know a lot of people talk about Unbreakable can save the entire game, and it really can, especially in solo.
So there you have it, right off the bat. I'm really glad that we have we have Mr. Tatorhead here. Great take here. He literally mentions himself, right? He mentions himself. He goes, when I was playing Survivor in all these years with no perks, I did not see any downsides. I did not see any issues. Only thing like that really mattered was communication. And I think that's very telling for the Survivor side, you know what I mean? And I've spoken a lot about the balancing of this game. And coming from somebody like Mr. Tatorhead, who has been playing without perks for years, is saying himself Like, look, I didn't find any problems playing as Survivor without perks. The only thing that really mattered was just communication. That is honestly very telling for the game's balancing, and also very telling for the Survivor side. Because, like, I've had a take before where, like I mentioned, I said Survivor is the easier side between Survivor and Killer. And people thought it was rage bait, or that I was just, like, losing my mind, and then they were, like, crying about solo queue. But the fact of the matter is, what I'm saying still remains true. Regardless of solo queue's existence and the fact that the vast majority of players are engaging in solo queue, we still have somebody who has had years of experience without any perks on that side and found no problems playing the game, despite the fact that it was solo queue, and despite the fact that it still is just easier, right? Because as he mentioned himself, like, when you're playing Survivor, there's never really a moment where you go, damn, I wish I had this perk. It was just communication to prevent something from occurring. So in other words, solo queue still sucks, but my point still stands, which I have to add on the fact that I'm not saying solo queue isn't bad or doesn't suck. It does. It's terrible. Your teammates will consistently always fail you. But what I want to point out is that it's not always, you know, the killer's fault for that. A lot of the time it can just be your teammates. You can't communicate with them. Or on top of the fact that, you know, your teammates may not be that experienced. So that is, you know, that is more so their problem and not necessarily your problem, which is okay to say. That's perfectly fine.
queue. But most of those scenarios where everybody's getting slugged and unbreakable to save the game, if we were on communications, we could have saved that anyway. Now, obviously, just because you're on communications doesn't mean every single game is going to go perfectly. But at the same time, every time something goes terribly wrong when I'm playing Survivor, it's not because of lack of perks. It always feels like, dang, if we were communicating, we could have gotten out of this scenario or avoided it completely. That is not the same with Killer. Killer, when you're playing no perks and no add-ons, you really only have two styles to play as opposed to Survivors, because Survivor, there's all these different maps and loops you can try against all these different killers that play those loops differently. So it never really runs out of things to try. On Killer, you're chasing the Survivor and letting them lead the chase. So if you have no perks and no add-ons to make the chase even more interesting, then you really only have two things to play for. And the two things you have to play for, including when you're trying to get up to Iridescent 1, is winning at all costs or playing as nice as you possibly can. It boils down to just those two. And playing to win with no perks and no add-ons on Killer is miserable, and for multiple reasons, not just the obvious one you think it is. Which
I'm glad that Mr. Tatorhead has said it himself. As a character, we like maining a character that I personally don't think is an S tier. I think they're probably at least a B. Definitely not C tier, but probably like a B or an A, or maybe a low A when it comes to Nemesis, in my opinion. Even a character that would potentially have a bit more utility and a bit more chase power than a character like Ghostface or Skull Merchant. Honestly, it says wonders, and it's really crazy to say, like, to see that once again we hear it once more. Another person says it, and as he described, there's only two paths, right? You either play super nice and you just don't win at all, you get steamrolled all day long, or you're gonna play to win, and then playing to win with no perks or add-ons is a nightmare. So, you know, so it says a lot. It's really telling, and it's really great to hear it from Mr. Tatorhead, who's somebody who's experienced both sides for as long as he has without any advantages from perks, which arguably I think makes him a very, very good player because of that. And he's able to come up with a bunch of these rotations that I've seen in those tutorial videos talking about maps. And also by the fact that he's a like the fourth highest like Nemesis player in the world, like considered one of the best, I would say, objectively, because of all those infections and all the data and the stats and everything. And it's crazy to hear it, but it just goes to show, you know. It really just goes to show it. It's very telling, you know, because I also agree with that concept. You don't really have anything else you can do, and that's it. When you play Killer, it's either you play to win, or you just play for the hooks and then you just lose anyway. So like it's either or, and there's not really any variation in that. So choosing between the two should not be a problem. You should not be shamed for just wanting to win your games or not. You know what I'm saying? If you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I've already spoken about a topic like this, you know, about Twins main stage, which I'll probably put that at the end of the video. You can go ahead and watch that, where I talk about, you know, I just don't engage in that kind of gameplay where I'm playing nice. I just play just to win for myself. I just find that fun and enjoyable to practice my characters, practice the game, and try to improve that way. That's just how I enjoy it. That's what I do. So that can change, you know, from person to person. That's perfectly fine. So let's continue.
Which is when you actually get matched up against a competent Swift running really strong things, you do not stand a chance whatsoever. Let's say you're playing Nemesis and you spawn in the middle of the map on Ormond, and all 4 survivors spawn on 4 different generators, and let's say it takes you 20 seconds, that's it, just 20 seconds to initiate your first chase. Meanwhile, all 3 other survivors are on those other 3 generators for those 20 seconds that you've been looking to start your first chase. Now, the first chase, let's say, goes 30 seconds, which is a great chase, because if you're going whip only, that means you hit them 3 times from just seeing them to hitting them 3 times, and they're down on the ground in 30 seconds. That's a pretty great chase. I'm going to be completely honest, unless the survivor's like messing up hard and you missed a bunch of whips somehow. But think about this. Now with that 30 seconds on that 20, you have 50 seconds done on 3 other generators that you have not even touched yet. And this is doing everything as efficiently as you possibly can. Now, from whip cooldown to picking up animation to walking them to the hook to hooking them, let's add like another 15 seconds. Can be more, can be less. Obviously, I'm just thinking about an average from whip cooldown, picking up, walking to hook. 15 seconds-ish, right? There's now 65 seconds done on those 3 other generators that you haven't touched yet. And if there was even progress on that first generator where you chased them off of, you haven't even kicked that one yet. And you're playing Nemesis. So if you don't have a zombie to push them off one of those 3 generators, and after your 30-second first chase, which is pretty good, hooking them, now you're walking across the map as fast as you can, trying to get to one of those 3 generators before they get done. And in all likelihood, you probably won't even get there. If they're being efficient, they will get all 3 generators done, with your first chase being 30 seconds. Now what do? You're gonna...
Thank you. Once again, thank you, Mr. Tatorhead, for letting everybody know how it works on Killer, especially when you are against competent teams that are efficient. And the only time that people don't see anything like this is because the teams that they're up against are not being efficient, which is fine. If you haven't experienced that before, that's great. You know what I mean? And that's perfectly okay. You don't, and it's good. You know, you don't have to experience that feeling of hopelessness, right? So with that being said, you know, Mr. Tatorhead here is literally describing the experience. I've also described the same experience. I do think he describes it in a much cleaner way than I would, and I have to give him all the credit for basically just describing it. And that's why I keep linking the Odd video that I was speaking about, you know, all the time, because it covers all that balancing. And it's even harder, you know, because think about it this way, like Nemesis may not be a pure M1, but he still doesn't have map traversal, and he requires you to get, as he mentioned, 3 hits to even get your down. If you're starting from no infection to getting that down, it could be easily 30 seconds. That's 30% of the gen, an additional 15 seconds depending on how long it takes to hook and then start walking. As he mentioned, that you're already reaching like easily 45, 50, or 60 seconds of the gen already done. And if you can try to chase somebody else, maybe you can try to stop another one, but even then you're still going to lose at least 3, or if not 2. So that is a very consistent thing that I personally have seen myself, and it's great that more people are talking about it, because that is just the sad reality of playing the game, right? And it's okay, you know, it's obviously a case by case basis. Like, not everybody may experience these matches before. Like, maybe they'll you know, perceive it differently, or maybe they'll just like have it like maybe play at a different level and whatever have you. But that doesn't take away the fact that these matches do exist, right? And it's good to hear that more people talk about it, and it's not me. You know, I'm not the only one. You know what I mean? It's crazy that people think that this is like something you just make up. You know, it's like, no, this is something that people experience.
Camp and tunnel, is that going to solve all your problems? Because it really won't against the Swifts that are running a bunch of strong stuff, and it will against the people that are not Swifts, not running strong stuff. And that's why playing to win gets super miserable, not just because of those scenarios where you cannot win because you're not running anything and they are running stuff, but the fact that even when you do win, it can be super unfulfilling. You have these huge comeback victories, you're like, yeah, we did it, and you look and you can't even see a meta perk and 16 perk slots and all their build, and they're very obviously solo queue. That doesn't feel good. That just feels like I beat up on a bunch of guys that had time for one game after bartending a 16-hour double in Times Square and getting back home to your apartment at 5:30 in the morning, because that was me. So the wins are pretty
That is literally like Mr. Tatorhead here describes the exact feeling of what it's like to play Killer, and even more so trying to play to win. Because like I ultimately, at least speaking for myself, I enjoy winning. That's, to me, is what I find fun about playing the game. But then, when you are playing a character that is, that you enjoy, like he enjoys playing Nemesis, or a character that you may like in general, like maybe you're a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, of a Scream fan, you know, whatever have you, and those characters may not be S tiers, right? But you want to play them anyway, and then you want to win because you like winning, and you like, you know, in the game, and you also like that character, but those things may not be consistent because sometimes you just can't get your win because of it. So it happens, you know, and it is unfulfilling. I completely agree with Mr. Tatorhead here. I completely agree. It's exhausting a lot of the time playing DBD, and also trying to win in that kind of way. And you know, I know that some of the more casual players are like, oh well, why don't you mess around with the survivors? And I just don't find that fun or fulfilling either. I just don't, you know, like there's no competitiveness in that. There's no challenge there in that way either. But you know, there's also kind of a limit, I think, of how much challenge you also can take, right? You know, and I think it varies case by case. But you know, I'm just mostly glad to hear that Mr. Tatorhead is also kind of talking about it, and just kind of you know, hopefully will resonate with other people too, that they also kind of share this sort of, you know, feeling when playing the game as well.
Unfulfilling, and the losses are just beyond annoying. It's like, why did I even queue up for this when I didn't stand a chance? But if you're going to incorporate perks and add-ons, there's so many more things you can do besides just playing to win or playing to pip or playing as nice as you possibly can. And playing nice can get really boring too, because if that's your only playstyle is playing nice as opposed to playing to win at any cost, if you're going to play nice, you got to commit to it and play nice, which means you're going to have those games where you keep passing by the same two survivors over and over that are on death hook. You keep looking at them, you keep ignoring them, keep looking at them, and they're doing gens. You're going to lose gens while you're trying to play nice. You're trying to find these other two survivors that are both hiding in separate lockers, trying to be the last survivor to escape, and they're trying to make sure the other survivors die so then they can open the hatch and get out. So you get really, really bored just walking circles around the map looking for that one survivor that's not on death hook yet. And when you've decided to play nice, it sucks to just give up and kill the two survivors that are actually playing, because you really want to kill the two rats that are trying to hide everybody else out. So really, when you're playing with no perks and no add-ons killer, you're stuck between trying to play to win at any cost, which is both unfulfilling or extremely frustrating, or playing nice, which can get insanely boring. But
that is interesting to hear about, because I'm not somebody who really plays that way. I don't really play nice at all. So to kind of hear the perspective of somebody who has done that before, to go, yeah, I don't even find it fun at all because it now gets boring too. That is interesting. You know what I mean? That is very interesting, because as we've seen with another video that we've spoken about before, some people play the game, like, it's crazy how interesting that the playstyles can get, because we have somebody here who has played both ways, right? They go full play to win, they have full, and then you have full be nice to everybody at all times, and both ways can be very unfulfilling in a lot of ways. And we also spoke about like Twins main stage, which that will hopefully be at the end of the video you can watch. They also talk about, you know, specifically just being there for the human connection, and specifically just being there to kind of pass the time on DBD. So it's like interesting to hear about that. You can, like, that's not also the golden standard of what you should be doing on the game anyway, because that also can be boring, that you can't like really do what you're trying to do. That's interesting.
it comes at the cost of actually having your own play style instead of just trying to play to win at any cost. But if you put perks and add-ons on Killer, there's a lot of stuff you can do where you're not even just playing to win. Yes, perks can help you win. They can get you insane win streaks. We see Killers getting on hundreds, thousands of games in a row just because of what you can do as Killer and what perks you can put on and how strong you can be, where it leaves it up to the survivor team you're playing against to literally just not make mistakes. But if you have perks and add-ons, you can put like some meme add-on on, like, let's say you wanted to do something like Trickster's Ricochet Blades, right? You just put on Trickster's Ricochet Blades right here, and you could literally just try to hit people only ricocheting things off the wall. Will you win sometimes? Maybe, but that's not even the point. The point is actually just trying to get fun value off of the add-on you have, and that's what I feel like I'm missing out on with Killer, because some of the add-ons straight up change how the Killer is even played or how the Killer even approaches the game, and you don't even have to worry about winning. It's just fun to try to get max value off of that. You can do the same thing with perks. One of the things I really want to start doing is with Pinhead, because new players are never going to see Pinhead. He's not even available for purchase anymore. So I really want to play lore accurate Pinhead, where I can like go to the basement corner or some secluded area where I just stand still with Insidious and they can't find me until one of them opens the box. And when they open the box, I'm going to play Pinhead. I'm going to play it normal. I'm just going to go after them. I'm not going to camp and tunnel them or even try to win. All I'm going to do is go after anybody that opens the box. This is something that is going to be so much fun, and you're going to end up in the lowest MMR because there's no way you're going to get wins doing that, at least not often. But
it is an interesting way to kind of play it. And like I've said before, like, it's never really been my personal play style. I've never really been interested in that kind of aspect of the game. I look at least when I've played, I look at killers more so, you know, as ways that I can play as characters that I like from horror movies, and also try to learn their abilities and be, you know, be good with those characters. And that's sort of like what what I've decided would be what I find interesting. And obviously, you know, it does limit a lot of the ways to kind of play the characters, and limits a lot of the ways to play the game in general. So if killer does does get like nerfed like crazy, which it has recently, and overall just isn't very fun to play recently, then obviously, you know, I'm not really on the game as much, and it's completely understandable. Which is fine. That's what I've recommended other people to do as well. If you're not enjoying the game, if you're not enjoying playing at all, just you don't have to play that. You know what I mean? You really don't. I've already mentioned this before, that if you're not enjoying it, just don't load it up. You know what I mean? You're not obligated to do so. And you know, that's sort of what I do. Like if I'm on stream, that's when I play, and you know, we try to have fun then, you know, but and not in my free time, that is for sure. But I do see the idea of in order to spice things up, you want to either play a new character or play a character to be, you know, with its own sort of challenge, you know. So in this aspect, you have the sort of like, you want to play like lore accurate Pinhead in that way, where like if they find the box and they open it, you know what I mean, then you go after them because they opened the box. But that is an interesting way to do that, and that's cool. I like that a lot. And he is right about that. Like you're gonna be losing like crazy with the with that kind of play style and stuff like that. So you're gonna be going against like, you know, very beginner, low level, you know. So that's perfectly normal too. We kind of assume that going in, if you are going to be doing something like that, and that's where a vast majority of the players are anyway. So it should be fine for the vast majority.
Sound like a fun way to actually play 1 or 2 games where I can actually make some new players have some fun going up against a lore accurate Pinhead that is really deadly. I have way too many hours to be playing against people that are that new to the game, but it's more about the experience for them. And if I'm only chasing people that open the box, they could probably escape anyway, even though they are brand new to the game. And that's the funniest thing, is if they barely play any DBD and they get in and they run into somebody playing Pinhead that they normally would never have seen, because you're never going to see Pinhead in low MMR since you can't purchase them anymore, and their one experience with them was lore accurate Pinhead, like that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't care about winning. I don't care that they're noobs. I just want to kind of scare, you know, some newer players with a killer that they're never ever going to see. And that's really just breaking the surface. There's so many other things you can do. Chag, where it's just chase hag. You can do chase nurse even, where you're faster when you don't have your one nurse blink and you're trying to down people just by playing the strongest killer in the game at a huge nerf essentially. Like there's a lot of different ways you can have fun without trying to win. But when you're playing no perks and no add-ons killer, you literally only have the 2 options.
I will, you know, as much as I lean into the idea that I just prefer trying to just like win my games, I will admit, and I will agree that that is what makes it fun and interesting for the killer side, if you're able to do that and if you decide to do that. It's personally never interested me, but I do completely understand and I completely agree that that would make it more fun and interesting. And that's great. I like the idea that he mentions that you're giving people an experience in this aspect. If you're framing it in this way, where it's not about entitlement, it's not about trying to deliberately just let people win for free, and it's just more focused on trying to give people that maybe have just started the game, that have really no ties to anything that has to do with the community and the just the culture within the community of entitlement all over the place. And it's simply just like some people just entering the game and they are fully focused on just trying to give them an experience. That I can stand by, that I can agree with. But obviously that applies to, you know, I think that'll be more applicable to characters that I probably am not too familiar with, I think, because I think the characters that I do play as, I think their MMR is way too high to be trying to mess around like that. It would essentially just become reverse boosting, and I just never want to really do that per se. But in this aspect, this frame, I will say no. I can completely agree with that, and I see how that could be a good thing for the community.
play to win, or do I actually have my own play style and play nice, which can end up being super, super boring. So after all these years, I really do think it's time to spend the blood points, especially because there's so many other ways to go above the cap that if we wanted to save it for another DLC or something like that, you could do that very easily, especially with how the new tomes work and how those actually go over the cap as well, and you don't have to select one challenge. You just, all of a sudden, I got like 10 million blood points in a few weeks, and it's like... Okay, well now we can save it for any DLC we really want. Don't worry though, I still love no perks on Survivor. I have no consideration into starting to run perks on Survivor, specifically because of my connection to it, to real life no perks. You also don't have to worry about if I get way too carried away playing a lot of these killers that I've literally never spent any blood points on and used any perks or add-ons on. I have about 7,000 games saved on an 8TB hard drive, and those are full Survivor games played. This is also what I mean when I say I can make a guide for any tile or any even complete map with multiple examples for any tile on any map in the game. That's a good thing. If I get carried away playing too much killer with the amount of time I have to play balancing work and play life, then I still will be able to make as many Survivor videos as I possibly could. I could make a Survivor video every single week for years without even playing a single another Survivor game, to be completely honest. Now, I still love Survivor more. I'm always going to be a Survivor main. Greeting a pallet is my favorite thing in the entire game, because getting chased by the killer feels like you're getting yelled at for starting trouble in grade school with your friends and you're like being scandalous and naughty, and then greeting a pallet feels like while the killer is staring right at you, you try to slip past the note right to your friend. So when it works, it's like, I can't believe I got away with that. It feels scandalous. And when it doesn't,
That, I have to say, is one of the best ways to describe that, like, his experience with the game. I think it's very nice that, and it's oddly wholesome, you know, describing like playing Survivor in that kind of way, that it's kind of like getting away with it. It's kind of like scandalous in that kind of way. And he said it himself, like, he's still gonna be a Survivor main at heart. Obviously, he still plays a lot of Nemesis. He enjoys it, but you know, and that's sort of how I kind of agree with that idea with Killer. Like, you know, the only difference is that I don't really have an interest in playing Survivor at all. My experiences with it have just been very lackluster, and I don't really think I'm gonna end up really getting back on there. Unless there really has to be like a really good incentive or something, and even then I think I would be a bit hesitant. But I'm glad to hear like sort of the way that he kind of describes it, because that is a very interesting way to put it, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like it really reframes it, I think, in a way that makes it sound interesting. I would say, like, it's the idea of like trying to, like, the idea of being chased in the first place, which is what I always said was the most fun aspect of playing Killer, and also like when I have played Survivor in the past. That to me was the most interesting aspect of it. I didn't really care for the healing and the unhooking and all this other stuff, because it just felt like a ton of downtime, like a bunch of just gens and just sitting around. I wanted to actually be in the chase, because that to me was the most engaging thing in trying to kind of maneuver and outmaneuver the killer in that kind of way. I thought was way more interesting, but that's not something that you can consistently kind of do, at least especially when you're starting out, because you know like the whole lobby's an experience as well as yourself, so like it's really not the best, I would say, thing to deal with. Plus solo queues, so I mean, you know, that your teammates are always going to do something ridiculous, so like it's kind of inevitable. But let's continue.
doesn't work, it feels like the teacher slaps your wrist looking right at you, like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm looking right at you. And you're like, yeah, it was worth trying. Nothing on Killer will take that away from me, so I'll always be a Survivor main. You do not have to worry about that. But I definitely have a lot of Killer that I need to play, seeing as how I haven't used perks or add-ons on like 90% of the Killer cast. Now, I was and still am going to spend the blood points on Springtrap when they come out, but...
All right, so that pretty much is the end of the video for you guys. If you want to watch the original video where he talks about, you know, being the number 4 Nemesis in the world, where he talks about like his like blood point you know, spending and stuff like that, definitely watch the original video. Support Mr Tatorhead, man. Probably arguably like one of the best players, you know, that should be more popular, I think. But either way, thank you guys for watching. Support with the links in the description, as well as checking out their video. And you can go ahead and follow on Twitch to watch and play Kill Alive. I will see you guys in the next video.